but our dynamic principal and organizing secretary of this web conference, respected Honorable Dr. Dilip Garud sir, has made it possible with his positivism, motivation, and academic support. To understand the purpose of this international web conference and our prestigious institution, I would like to invite respected Honorable Dilip Garud sir to deliver his introductory welcome speech. Principal Dr. Dilip Garud sir, over to you, sir.
Yes. Hello.
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Hello.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Myself, Dr. Dilip Garud, Principal of Adarsh Mahavidyalaya Umarga, welcome all dignitaries and participants who have been virtually participating in this international web conference on revisiting language and literature after COVID-19. The novel coronavirus pandemic has given wings to the work from home culture as people across the world and forced to stay at home to prevent the spread of virus. Interestingly, it took the outbreak to realize the true potential of the digital mediums of communications. The keynote speaker of today's academic event, Honorable Professor A.G. Khan sir, the renowned academician and speaker, former BCUD Director, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Maratha University, Aurangabad, Professor Dr. Mustijib Khan, Department of English, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Maratha University, Aurangabad, Dr. Ramesh Chaugale, the head of the Department of English, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Maratha University, Subcampus Usmanabad, and Dr. Perin Somani, Madam, an international academician who has been from England. The convener and head of the Department of English, our college, Dr. T.M. Pawar, coordinator Dr. Sudhir Matpati and Dr. Prashant Mote, and my dear participants. Honorable Basavarajji Patil, ex-state minister, Honorable Vinayak Patil, renowned social worker, Ramakrishna Madhya Kharoshkar, and their colleagues, that they have established this Shramajীவி Shikshan Prasarak Mandal institution in 1984. Our Adarsh Mahavidyalaya established in 1990. Since its establishment, the institution has been providing the quality education for the student of rural arena. The college aims at shaping the bright future of the students in proper way. Because of the student is the central figure, is the stream of education in the globe. Shramajীவி Shikshan Prasarak Mandal is one of the leading educational institutions giving education from KG to PG and pharmaceutical courses in the Usmanabad district of Maharashtra. We received a 2.92 CGPA in the second cycle of NAC and now preparing for the third cycle. The efforts taken by the Department of English is really admirable. Organizing the international web conference with more than 600 delegates during the lockdown period is an uphill task. As the organizer of this international web conference, I express my best wishes for the grand success of this web conference. Friends, today we all have gathered here virtually to explore the most important topic, and that is revisiting language and literature after the COVID-19. Friends, the entire globe has been suffering from this pandemic stroke of COVID-19, and every country has been trying its best to overcome the same and face the biological threat positively and bravely. In the same fashion, our country, India, has been doing the same in positive manner. Friends, it is quite obvious and known to almost everyone that this COVID-19 has created quite pathetic and disastrous flight for all of us. And it has disturbed almost every structure of the society, state and nation as well. We cannot expect a single arena which has not been affected by the COVID-19. In this scenario, is like this then, how can we expect that language and literature will be free from this? And there will not be any vibrations in this stream of language and literature. Of course, friends, the stream of language and literature have also been influenced by COVID-19, and definitely there will be certain changes in the structure of language literature. It is an honor and privilege that this English language and literature has great heritage, but the coming shades of language and literature are going to be different. We know that The literature is nothing but the mirror of society, and almost every part of the society is depicted in the literature with different languages. The stream of literature is poised and unique, and with the help of language, it gets flourished. As there are genres of literatures like novel, drama, poetry, short stories, etc., which have been dealing with imaginary and realistic pictures of the society so far, are going to become with different shades of society and its scenario in the coming days of our lives. So friends, today gathering will be a platform for explore all the possibilities which may happen with language and literature in the coming days. So friends, I congratulate to Department of English and its faculty members for organizing such an academic event with fruitful theme, and extend gratitude towards all my guests for the accepting our invitation and extend warm wishes to the event for its success. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you, Principal Dr. Dilip Garud sir, for elaborating theme of the conference, informing attendees about our prestigious institutions, and welcoming all the reputed dignitaries and participants. Dear academicians, now may I invite Dr. T.M. Pawar sir, head and convener of this web conference, to deliver his introductory remarks and introduce our respected dignitaries, Honorable Dr. A.G. Khan sir, Dr. Mustajib Khan sir, Parin Somani ma'am from UK, and Dr. Ramesh Chougule sir. Over to you. Over to you, T.M. Pawar sir.
Good afternoon. For myself, Dr. T.M. Pawar, Head of the Department of English, Shramjeevi Shikshan Prasarak Mandal, Adarsh Mahavidyalaya, Umarga. I warmly welcome all the respected dignitaries, Honorable Dr. A.J. Khan sir, Dr. Mustajib Khan sir, Parin Somani ma'am from UK, and Dr. Ramesh Chougule sir, and Honorable Principal Dr. Garud sir. It gives me an immense pleasure to acknowledge that our department is hosting one-day international web conference on the topic revisiting language and literature after COVID-19. The conference has received overwhelming response from teachers, scholars, research scholars, and academicians across the world. The topic of the conference has a contemporary relevance, hence it requires a great debate and deliberation. International web conference is instrumental for me and my colleagues. The conference will teachers and research scholars in particular to deliberate upon various issues regarding revisiting language and literature after COVID-19. Language, society, and literature are inseparable and interdependent, both influence each other. The conference provides a forum to academicians to share their ideas and views related to the theme of the webinar. As a convener of this international web conference, I thank the delegates, the research scholars who industrially participated in this web conference. Friends, today we have with us nationally and internationally acclaimed speakers and academicians. As a keynote speaker, we have with us our Guru, Dr. A.G. Khan sir. Sir is the director, Dr. Rafiq Zakaria Center of Higher Learning and Advanced Research, Aurangabad. He has 35 years of experience of PG teaching at Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathoda University, Aurangabad. He was the former director, Board of College and Universities Development, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathoda University. Under his able guidance, there are 34 PhD research scholars and 16 MPhil research scholars have successfully completed their research. He has delivered talks as the keynote speaker and resource persons in many countries across the globe. Sir has translated 3 volumes of contemporary Marathi Sahitya into Urdu, sponsored by Maharashtra State Urdu Academy. 3 volumes of contemporary Indian stories translated into Urdu, sponsored by Sahitya Academy, New Delhi. Anthology of selections from Dalita Atmakatha, published by Maharashtra State Urdu Academy, Mumbai. Approximately 50 Marathi stories and poems translated into Urdu, and translated and translated Shamchi Ai in Urdu, sponsored by North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon. His area of specialization is American literature, British literature, Canadian literature, translation studies, and literary theory. Next, we have with us Parin Soman ma'am. Currently, she holds an academic scholar's position for the visiting resource person at UGC, HRDC, Saurashtra University, and Gujarat University. Moreover, Parin ma'am has traveled extensively to study indigenous communities and environmental ethics within many parts of the developing and developed world to share research and skills. She has received multi-fellowships from December 2017 to March 2020 to visit various scholars, faculties within universities in India and international conferences. She helps to build bridges between communities internationally through her research presented international conferences. Parin ma'am has a background in media, being a newsreader and television presenter in Ahmedabad, Doordarshan, and All India radio station. She is a freelance writer and poetess contributing to a variety of newspapers and authored 11 books. She is the director and academic researcher of the International Association for the Study of Genius, president of Shantidut Parivar UK Women's Wing, Global Peace Ambassador for England, chairperson of Local Community Seniors Residential Home, London, England. For her contribution to society, she has revised she inspired our 2020 as the Houses of Parliament England, the Feelings Pride of India Award 2020, the Good Citizenship Award 2019 at All India NCC Camp for Girls and the International Diaspora Award 2019. Then we have also with us Dr. Ramesh Chowgule sir, Professor and Head Department of English, Subcampus Osmanabad. Sir has 23 years teaching experience and 16 years research experience. Dr. Ramesh Chowgule sir has completed one major research project and two minor research projects. He has published 30 articles in various national and international journals and also published 2 books. He has worked as an external examiner for PhD thesis evaluation for various universities. He has conducted 2 national seminars. Under his able guidance, 17 students has obtained PhD degrees and 15 MPhil scholars has successfully completed their dissertations. Next, we have Dr. Mustajib Khan sir. Dr. Mustajib Khan is a professor of Department of English in Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, Aurangabad, MS, India. His area of specialization is drama, theater, translation studies, and film studies. He is a well-known theater activist and and light designer. He wrote 3 plays, 2 long plays, and one act play in Marathi. He has translated many plays from English to Marathi. He has completed major research project and political theater, a thematic study of the selected plays of Utpal Dutt, Safdar Hashmi, and G.P. Deshpande. He is the research supervisor of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, Aurangabad. I express deep sense of gratitude to the management of the institute, the principal, the departmental colleagues, and other teaching and non-teaching staff of our college who have taken great collective efforts for making this event a memorable one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. T.M. Pawar, sir, for your introductory remarks and introducing respected dignitaries, Honorable Dr. A.G. Khan, sir, Dr. Mustajib Khan, sir, Parin Somani, ma'am, and Dr. Ramesh Chowgule, sir, in a very systematic and praiseworthy manner. Now, may I invite the most renowned, internationally acclaimed academician, translator, administrator, our guiding force and source of inspiration for millions of students like us, Dr. A.G. Khan, sir, to deliver his keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's indeed a great pleasure once again to be associated with the academic activities of a very renowned institution. the Adarsh Mahavidyalaya, Umarga, headed by an esteemed friend, who is also the principal, Principal Garu, the convener of this web conference, Dr. Tanaji Pawar, Professor Uttam Ambore, Professor Mustajib Khan, and the co-coordinators of this webinar, Professor Matpathy and Prashant Mote, Mr. Kamalakar Zadav, and of course, the resource persons, the Honorable Somani Ma'am, Professor Chaugule, and all the participants of this webinar. I'm very happy to be associated with all of you. It is a very difficult time, as we all know, a testing time for all sections of society, and especially for teachers, researchers, academicians, and students, those who are continuously engaged in the pursuit of knowledge and excellence. It's a testing time for all teachers. It's not a condition specific to teachers of language and literature. It's a condition that the teaching community, fraternity as a whole, has to go through with courage, patience, and a certain degree of the peace of mind. The webinar today is organized around a very important subject, revisiting language and literature after COVID-19. Now, this term itself, this expression, revisiting, clearly signifies that we are trying to review, we are trying to reassess, re-examine, and revisit our function in a larger society as teachers, our role as the role models for the younger generation, and obviously our goal to achieve at various stages, maybe a minimum level of literacy or linguistic competence or literary competence. So this pandemic, as it has come to be known, has raised a number of issues. And these issues need to be addressed. And I feel that these issues need to be addressed again and again, so that we understand our past, our present, and obviously our destiny, both as Indian nationals and also as the citizens of the world. So I feel that this COVID-19 has made us confront with three major issues. And these issues are the issues of public health in general. And of course, there are allied issues of the health of the minors, the health of women, the health of senior citizens, and those who are either asymptomatic or symptomatic of these ailment. The second issue that we need to address is the issue of economic growth and economic development. We know that this pandemic has affected economic growth internationally. It's not limited to a specific region or a state or a nation. It's transnational. It's a condition that has affected people all over the world. And the slowing down of economy, it's a very significant and substantial slowdown. And we do not understand the consequences of this slowdown right now. But in a few years to come, and years to come, we will have to realize the seriousness and gravity of the economic crisis that we are facing right now, and the younger generation is likely to face in years to come. And the third issue, obviously, is the issue of very peculiar states of mind, specific to the morbidity arising out of the fear of infection, and the general fear that this is a pandemic that is likely to stay with us for a longer period of time, though we would like it to end sooner than later. But the symptoms clearly indicate that this pandemic is likely to stay with us for a fairly long period of time. If not as a medical condition, it will stay with us as a socio-cultural reality that we may have to face for a long time. So in this situation, there are very serious and adverse impacts on interpersonal relationship, social interactions, community interactions, and various kinds of community. For instance, the business community, the entertainment community, the teaching community, the administrative community, the political community. So all kinds of communities are passing through a crisis of interpersonal and social relationships. And it has generated in a fairly large section of society a kind of an unknown anxiety. Anxiety that is forcing people to take extra precautions. And of course, in times of such general pandemics, it is necessary that we take adequate precautions. We take care of ourselves, we take care of our family, our kith and kin, and of course, we take care of our elders and our friends. But there is a kind of a general fear, a general anxiety, a kind of an angst that is setting into general psyche. And Partly, this anguish or anxiety can be also explained in terms of the widespread media coverage, the social media, the electronic media. Um, Even an average person, if you scan through the anecdotes that we receive daily on Twitter, on WhatsApp, on Facebook, we realize that even an ordinary person knows more about this pandemic than probably our learned people. So it's become a kind of a talk of the town subject. So in this kind of a global crisis, it is necessary that we as teachers of language and literature start rethinking about the various aspects of our engagement, our engagement with language, and obviously our engagement with literature. Now, language, as we all know, is a medium of communication, and it rests solely on community trust. Language is a bond. It's a kind of an agreement, a contract between the speaker and the listener, or the writer and the reader. And unfortunately, because of this pandemic, this bond seems to be weakening. It has made us realize how vulnerable we are, how fragile we are, and how language is being reshaped, remolded in social media, in writing. There are hundreds and hundreds of pages available on the website. If you open the internet and if you try to scan through the various small or large write-ups that people have been posting on various social media, and then identify um, those sections which are concerned with learning, teaching, and testing processes. There are hundreds of teachers all over the world, from Canada, from Brazil, from Italy, from our own country, from UK, who are expressing their serious concerns about the failure of our established systems of knowledge and learning, of the systems of uh, dissemination of information. And these systems have become almost dysfunctional. Schools are shut down, our junior and senior colleges are closed, our senior colleges and our postgraduate courses are kept in abeyance. And the whole function of teaching, testing, learning, generation of knowledge, or dissemination of knowledge, research seems to have reached a point of standstill. So it's in this kind of a general crisis that we need to rethink. Is this pandemic likely to be with us for a longer period of time than we expect? We don't know. Is there a medical solution to this pandemic right now? The tests being conducted on this new vaccine, different places, and it's likely that the results may come somewhere in the middle of next year. We have literally lost half the year. Our academic activities have come to a halt. So what we do through these webinars and seminars is to generate awareness amongst the students, teachers, and researchers that despite the pandemic, despite the general crisis, our duty as teachers and researchers is to continue our pursuit. And one basic principle in all activities and endeavors is to develop a sustainable system, a system that is sustainable, that can sustain for a longer period of time. So if you look at the post-COVID in a kind of a lingua franca, the language of COVID, is characterized by isolation, separation, distancing, and eventually leading to a state of aloofness and loneliness. Literature may talk about aloofness, literature may talk about loneliness, and there are scores of poems and stories and novels, short stories, plays written about this subject. But the ultimate function of literature is to bring people together. Language also connects people. The absence of language is the absence of communication, and therefore absence of contact. In a contactless world, where there is no physical contact, material contact, the only means of contact then we have is the virtual through electronic media, and we must increasingly use these electronic portals and platforms to keep discussing these issues. So language, in this kind of a crisis, our language is reshaping. Language does, as our linguists tell us, that language is ultimately an arbitrary medium of communication. And therefore, depending on the time and the space, our linguistic formulations keep changing. The paradigms of language keep shifting. And they have shifted. If we look at the growth and evolution of language historically, we can easily see how English language, has traveled over the centuries, say from the early 15th century to the present time. The paradigms have completely shifted and have changed substantially. And yet, I think there is also a kind of an anxiety about the reading of printed material. In the early days, if you see the newspapers and the media reports, the newspapers were banned, it was suggested that touching paper, touching currency could also infect. So I believe for a long period of time, people were cut off from the printed uh, media, print media. And we depended mostly on the electronic media, reports on the television or reports on Facebook and Twitter and so on and so forth. So a new format is evolving. I mean, just imagine a newspaper that runs into 35 or 40 pages, and you need all your morning tea time to just glance through. We cannot afford that kind of a luxury anymore. Small reports on the social media keep us well informed about the day-to-day developments in our country, in our state or region. So language is slowly reshaping. Will we go back to the language of 2017 and 18? We may, we may not, depending on how this pandemic is ultimately disposed of. Are we likely to go back to our teaching and research on the same patterns that we did in 2017 and 2018, just a couple of years back? Doesn't seem to be likely anywhere in near future, because the various modular agencies of the state government and the central government have already indicated that there is going to be a substantial reduction in our syllabi. And most schools and colleges have already initiated the online teaching learning processes. So those days of a classroom teaching, those days of a library research, those days of traveling to very prestigious research centers have come to a halt as of now. They may renew in near future. They may take a long time. And, if we are aware of this pandemic and its impact on public life, we have to realize that unless every public space is properly disinfected, properly maintained, we may not be able to return to these spaces very soon. And as a result, our language of community communication or language of community interaction, our language of community responsibility, you are no more. I mean, you are no more connected with your community in the same way that you were connected a couple of years earlier. So that language will have to be, in a way, redefined, is reshaping, already reshaped. And that language will depend on a different kind of a grammar. That language will depend upon a different kind of a syntax, and its semantics may also substantially change. Secondly, I also strongly feel that they, as students and teachers of language and literature, we must take into account the mass scale migration that has resulted due to COVID. Of course, migration has been a part of human history. People have migrated under different circumstances, because of famine, or because of war, or because of political oppression, or in order to seek better opportunities and livelihood. But this migration is a distressed migration, as one of our senior friends, Professor Guru, says. It's a distressed migration. People are moving out of their places of work, especially the daily wages and those who migrated earlier from different states to our state or to different states in search of livelihood and subsistence are migrating back to their places. It's a reverse and a distressed kind of a migration. There's a lot of writing available on migratory paradigms and dynamics. And there's a whole body of writing from Canada, from Australia, from our own country, especially writers who have traveled to the West and have settled in UK or in Australia or in New Zealand or in Canada, and so on and so forth. But this migration is a different kind of a condition. As I said, it's reverse and it's distress, and it clearly speaks volumes about the loss of faith. People are desperately remigrating, going back, because they don't have faith in our social system. They believe that they continue to stay and work as migratory laborers in our in our metropolitan centers. They will not be able to survive, and it's not simply a question of an individual's survival, because their family depends on their earning. So they realize that the system, the social system as a whole, of course, there have been a number of welfare organizations and charitable societies that have come out and have helped these people. But it's not a long time strategy. We are a welfare socialist state, a welfare state, and it is the duty of the state and the duty of the government to rehabilitate these people. So are we going to have new stories? What will the form of these stories? Stories of migration, stories of joblessness, stories of hunger, stories of accidental deaths, stories of starvation. Very fascinating stories have come out on the social media about how young girls venture out and have the courage and conviction to carry their ailing parents back home, traveling on bicycles, on tricycles, hundreds of kilometers. Are we going to face a new kind of a migratory literature of migration within our own country? It's a domestic migration, of course. It's our own national phenomenon. But this is true in other countries as well. So are these are our frames of reference or our paradigms or our critical idioms adequate to define these conditions? Do we have the competent critical terminology to define these conditions? And are we going to evolve a competent and adequate terminology to speak about these unspeakable realities of human suffering, pain, and anguish? That we have to see how our writers respond to these conditions, how our poets respond to these conditions. and how our political analysts and social analysts respond to these conditions, because we have seen during the past few years the media has created only hype, fear, and anguish. Of course, they have also reported very honestly the actual conditions of people's plight and suffering, but there has also been a great deal of hype about it. So, is literature and media connected? Is the language of literature and media different? Is the language of media uh, as sincere and as authentic as Trilling would call it? Our literary products have to be sincere and authentic, as Trilling says it. So, how authentic are these reports? How sincere are these people? Or is it just a kind of a commercial hype? And how do we establish, while rethinking the relationship between language, relationship between media, language, literature, and of course, social reality? So these are very, very serious issues. And I believe that in a seminar of this kind, we need to take up these issues seriously again and again. I'm sure we have an esteemed, an international uh, resource person, Somali ma'am, and she will throw more useful light on this. But given the structure and webinar, I believe that this is as good as enough for uh, opening the seminars. So I must thank you all again and wish you all the best for organizing this webinar on a very, very relevant and important subject. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thanks a lot, respected Honorable Sir, for the most insightful, fruitful talk on the theme of the conference. Your valuable ideas and issues related to public health, health of minors, senior citizens, effect of this pandemic situation on economical growth across the globe, social media issues, and how language has been reshaping mass migration during and after COVID-19, and how interconnected language, literature, and media. So, sir, you really paves new dimensions about language and literature. Thank you very much for your insightful address. Now, may I invite the Parin Somani from UK, London. She is an accomplished academician, astute educational lecturer, and motivational speaker with over 35 years of professional experience handling multiple aspects of organizational administration, leadership, teaching, research guidance, and presenting to deliver her talk on the major theme of this conference. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Namaskar, Garur sir. Namaskar. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Recording.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the kind introduction, Dr. Mothe, and thank you to Dr. Garrett, Principal and Organizing Secretary for this event, Dr. Pawar, Head Department of English, Keynote Speaker, Professor Khan, Dr. Khan, Department of English, Professor Chogele, Head Department of English, Dr. Jadavji, Coordinator Dr. Prashant Mothe, Dr. Mahapati, and the organizing team for inviting me here. It is my honor to be with all of you, and it is my pleasure to speak on the revisiting language and literature after COVID-19. The presentation. As we all know, that the world has been disrupted that we are currently living in. Prior to this, our interaction with each other, what we referred as a normal human interaction. But the notion of the word normal in society today has no definition, is constantly being altered. This is difficult for us because we human beings are creatures of habits and do not change. The way in which we communicate has been altered. We must adapt to these changes, otherwise, we'll be left behind in many aspects of our lives. We forget that even the surface of the earth at the equator moves at the speed of 460 meters per second, or approximately 1000 miles per hour. So, within the ever-changing world, and particularly after COVID-19 pandemic, we must have new innovative method communicate to inform others, ask for help, or share attitude. Next slide. When we explore the concept of literature, we find that it has the power to do many different things, including a platform to express new ideas, provide a voice to express opinion in all areas of life, including health, political, religion, nature, education, life skills. It provides messages and inspiration to its reader. Literature has had impact on the development of society. It has shaped civilization, changed political system, and exposed injustice. It gives us a detailed preview of human experiences, allowing us to connect on the basic level of desire and motion. So it enables us to develop a new way of thinking and inspiring us and more stronger than we were before. Next slide, please. We can view literature as a mode of communication. When we read literature, we are listening to someone else's point of view. And when we're writing literature, we are sharing our thoughts and viewpoints for others. Therefore, we can perceive literature and language after COVID-19 either in a negative way or a positive. Many people do not want to think about the life after COVID-19 for many reasons, such as they feel it's overwhelming. They feel that they are thinking it's too much. It won't make a difference because they cannot change it. So they want to focus on the things they can change. And finally, people have more immediate things to think about. I always try and look at the things, everything in a positive way. When we're looking in a positive light, remember, every cloud has a silver lining. There is a bound to be an impact on all the areas of life within society. We can already see the change around us, including the way we are holding the conference today. We are accepting the change. Next slide, please. Environmental, social, technological, economic, geopolitical, educational, and other global factors will constantly change even after the pandemic. So there is a need to build meaningful resilience. Next slide, please. Social interaction health, and socio-economic impacts, language, communication, etc., we will be living in an alternate society, a new normal society, one that is unknown to us, perhaps a society that promotes cooperation and the global solidarity. After experiencing the hardship of living through a pandemic such as this, it may oblige us to rethink communism so that we can trust each other, not just an ideal solidarity between individuals, a communism that seeks to understand science and recognizes forthcoming crises to promote survival. We can view this COVID-19 pandemic as a catalyst to encourage change. Next slide, please. What is language? It is the method of human communication, either spoken or written. It consists of using words in a structured and a conventional way. It is more than just a form of communication.
Sorry for the interruption, ma'am. Wait a while. There is someone who is making fun with the slides. Wait a while. Let me check. Are you there, KD sir?
Yes.
So find out who is this person.
This cannot be find out. Do one thing. Make the slide.
I will stop sharing and then I will once again
yes.
play it.
Yes.
Is that okay, ma'am?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. I didn't realize. I can't see the screen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Mothe.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We can go ahead now.
Go directly to the yes. Next slide, because
yes.
Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, but
okay, is this okay? Is this slide okay?
Prashant, follow the chat. That go in option and disable annotate.
Okay. Anyway.
Okay.
Is this okay, ma'am? Shall we start with the COVID-19 effects? The slide which I have played it now.
Is a literature one, yeah?
Okay. Okay. Literature one. Okay. Literature.
I want the language one. No, I want the language one. What is language? Language.
Yes. What is literature is there? Slide.
Okay. But what is language? It is a map. Because I can't see on my screen here, Dr. Mothe.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, but what is language? It is a method of human communication, either spoken or written. It consists of using words in a structured and a conventional way. It is more than just a form of communication. It is used all over the world throughout our interaction, whether we speak, write, or read. It is a body of words, symbols, sound, signs, and gestures, and a system used to communicate with each other. It is understood by people of the same community, cultural tradition, and nation. COVID-19 lockdown measures have influenced our mode and methods of communication, not only our communication skills or style. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, the majority of our communication took place through human interaction or by phone. We may use this technology usually as a supplement to assist our communication through the phone or video calling. But it is not usually a primary method of communicating, especially during this conference like this. We would all interact physically in a social gathering. However,
stop video आणि हे करायचं मध्ये आणि स्टार्ट
Prashant, unmute and talk. Yes, ma'am. Continue, please.
However, due to social distancing regulation, the method of interaction is different, but the way we communicate is evolving from the method to one to another. Next slide, please. So when we talk about languages itself, there are many languages. It is a multi-dimensional aspect. Yes, there are roughly 7,111 spoken international major languages around the world, which constantly fluctuate as more as is being learned by more languages is learned every day. In India, there are approximately 22 major languages with more than 19,500 languages or dialects are spoken in India as a mother tongue. That is only through verbal communication. Non-verbal communication is also an important part of a human development. Both were used prior to pandemic together. Language have a very important social purpose as it's used primarily for the linguistic communication. Next slide, please. It should be the communication slide, Dr. Moti. Communication is the ability to convey or share ideas and feelings effectively. Therefore, it is the act of conveying meanings from one entity to the group of another through the use of mutual understood signs, symbol, and semiotic rules. When we have a good communication skill, we can build up relationships from the initial building rapport through to a longer term relationships. We can listen well, and we can also vary their communication to suit the circumstances. There are many different forms of communication, including verbal, non-verbal, business, family, political, interpersonal. The form of communication, we will be focusing on the verbal and the non-verbal communication. Next, please. Verbal communication is the use of sounds and the words to express ourselves. It is the spoken or the written transmission of a message. The meanings that are attached to words can be literal and relating to the topic being discussed, or the meaning take a context and the relationships into account, relating to the feelings, history, and a power dynamic of communicators. Next slide. Language can be used to satisfy physical, emotional, and social needs. Language have many functions. For example, it can be used as a regulatory, where we use language to give instruction. It can be instrumental. It can be instrumental where we can express our needs through language. Interactional function, which is used to form relationships. Personal function, to express how we feel. Understanding our own environments and influencing the environment through our words, using heuristic function of language. Representational function, to communicate information, or the highest function of language, which is the imaginative function, where we can go into the imagination world. It is us as a human being that give language its meaning. Next slide. While non-verbal communication is described as those aspects of communication as a gesture and a facial expression that do not involve verbal communication, but which may include non-verbal aspect of speeches itself, like accent, voice of tone, speed of speaking, etc. Next slide, please. For example, body language, face is the index of the mind and is clearly displays the person's interest. Body language presents to the audience what we feel and think about the particular matter. Nodding your head is one way or another, showing interest. Body language, for example, arms crossed, standing, sitting, relax. It illustrates the emotions of the sender and receiver. For example, speaking clearly, enthusiastically, excitedly. Examples of intent are voluntarily. Intentional movements like shaking or shaking a hand or winking, such as sweating. Next slide, please. It is through non-verbal communication that we replace or substitute verbal messages both positively and negatively. Interrupted. They are heavily relied on to express communication and to interrupt others. Sometimes this can be difficult and unclear. When verbal message contradict non-verbal message, and the observation of non-verbal behavior is relied on to judge another attitudes and feelings rather than assuming the truth of the verbal message alone. Next slide, please. There are many aspects that can cause of communication. Are you changing the slide, Dr. Mothe? Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Are you changing the slide?
I think, yes, we are at a non-verbal communication, but there is some problem with the slides.
No.
Someone is playing with the slides. So I will stop sharing.
Yes, yes. Prashant,
Yeah.
stop sharing.
Somebody,
I will stop. Yeah.
Hi,
Okay.
actually,
You can present it, ma'am, like this way.
yes,
No
yes.
problem.
Yes, yes.
somebody is drawing on the slide.
Yeah. Anyway,
And,
we can understand. Yeah.
I don't know why somebody is drawing on the slide.
Yes,
Actually,
yeah.
and I don't know who are some.
Even we are not aware
yes,
about this fact.
Find it.
Yes, ma'am. But anyway, we can understand your concept in this way too, ma'am. We will stop sharing. You can go on with your presentation, no problem. Is that fine with you, or
Okay.
I need to?
That's fine.
Okay, may I share it again? How many? Okay. How many slides are there?
I still got more.
Okay.
I think so. I do half of.
I think we have reached to non-verbal communication. Okay.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Yes, you can go ahead, ma'am. No problem. Types of non-verbal communication.
There are many aspects that can cause a communication barrier and therefore hinder communication, resulting in failure of communication process. This cause and effect has undesirable consequences. These includes filtering the thought process before conveying the message selectively or biased perception. Too much information, a person's own emotions like conveying messages or receiving them. Language used or different language spoken, silence, communication anxiety, difference in gender, or even being politically correct using carefully chosen words, or even differences in cultural aspect. Due to globalization, it is now important to keep our knowledge up to date on the different cultures in order to communicate effectively with the cross-culture people without leading to unnecessary conflict due to lack of understanding and cultural differences on communication. The role of language is very, very important in human development, whether it is portrayed verbally or written literature. Written literature communicate through creative writings. We may have heard some wonderful session on many different aspects of languages, whether it may be in countries, learning, teaching, politicals, academics, or personal development. Each subject area has its own language, like the language of literature, language of philosophy. We have the language of the mind in psychology or in sociology or science. Next slide, please. Our method of language and communication has been altered through the pandemic. Conventional way of communicating these languages have altered to virtual platform like what we are doing right now. Fortunately, our thoughts and ideas on these subject area can still be communicated to each other, making sure our expression of language and development in these areas are not stopped. They can be accessed from one device, not just through the computer like within the past. In fact, tablets and smartphones have become the most popular mode of communication. It ensures communication can occur anytime, any day, or any hour of the day. Look at our mode of communicating right now. We are all on Zoom, video conferencing, communicating each other through verbal communication, although we are all situated around the world in different parts. We can see each other's faces and gauge parts of non-verbal communication as well. This is a language of computer. Morphology and syntax. The computer is also able to read and write. Next, please. There are continuous advancement in education, new discoveries and technology advancement in many different software being utilized as a mode of communication. All of this contribute to our continuous growth. There is a need to develop new competencies in order to meet ever-changing requirement. There is a need for a clear language policy motivation to research local languages and incentives to study language to preserve historical language and literature. Next slide.
Yes.
The communication, as we know, including language and literature, has not stopped, but it is developing and will continue to do so until there is a immunization against the virus. As the world changes, we must transform the way we learn and the ways we transmit knowledge. But we need to ensure that our method of transmission is perceived to be sensitive to others. Together with interactive video conferencing software programs, languages can be used throughout the world. Other virtual platforms like social media, Facebook, Instagram, where you can watch live programs and interact with each other, interact with the like-minded people, and socially engage variety of different topics. Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, where you can connect with others. So although we are not physically able to connect with each other, we can take to a virtual platform to share our knowledge and ideas like we are doing today. Next slide. Different softwares have the ability to stimulate a stimulation similar to meeting or conference room. I take example of Zoom or Google Meet as how what we do. They have the facility to raise hand if there is a question, or a chat box to write any comment or to add any messages. There is a facility to conduct breakout session for the group discussion to allow collaborating and peer language communication. Organizers are able to conduct different activities and tasks within the session, sometimes to engage participants and enhance reciprocal communication, but also allow flexibility in times and tasks. Next, please. After the pandemic, language and literature can continue to be communicated through online as it has been during the global pandemic. There are many case histories, references, web sources, other sources or suggested material or related links, research papers, journals, or e-article in a desired subject area. These can all be accompanied by e-text, which is very invisible in an organizer content on a content format. Self-contractual material can be obtained within different online platforms. During this pandemic, to including e-tutorial to stimulate participating learning, videos and audio, animation, demonstration, video transcriptions. Next slide, please. Material must be intellectually stimulating, and we must be self-motivated to use every resource possible to communicate during this global pandemic. Yes, there may be technical challenges that as we are experiencing, what we are experiencing right now. There are some challenges, there are some hiccups happening right now. So I don't think we should worry about, we should continue because the flow has to go. River doesn't stop for anyone. Education doesn't stop for anyone. So remember, internet connectivity and insufficient bandwidth for speech clarity, the loss of internet connection, software and technical issues may happen. Additionally, factors may include reluctance to change or difficulties in learning in a new way of teaching or gaining knowledge. Over the period of time, hopefully these challenges will overcome. We may embark upon a new way of learning when human interaction and larger social gatherings are not allowed again by the government. In the meantime, it is important to remember that we shape the future through our action and lessons from our past. Literature, next slide, please.
Yes.
Literature in the future will view COVID-19 as a historical event. So in other words, we are the big part of the history. Through the literature that we write, we will be able to document research and findings during this period. It will be viewed in future by many generations, by other researchers. This can be our future contribution to the society through the work we are doing now. Currently, books are published in magazine, online, and offline journals, books, and ebooks. However, post the COVID-19 pandemic, in my opinion, it would not surprise me if most of the literature would be stored online database and is easily to accessible. Next slide.
Yes.
We need to ensure that we do not lose our glorious past of human connection, society development. Society is slowly moving away from languages, induced society and a social development. The knowledge, as we know, it is being commodified. We need to aim to preserve the language literature to ensure that we continue. They are linked knowledge, practices, and culture. With the influx of the technological society, it is important to preserve our language and literature more than ever. Therefore, through well-organized conferences like this and sharing our knowledge, we can overcome future challenges. Next slide, please. Yes, we are going through challenging situation as a result of the pandemic. We have been affected economically, socially, and personally. But now our world is slowly transforming. We are evolving into a new normal society. Remember, new normal society where things as we know, it may never be the same again. We may have got the difficulty. We must embrace this change together. We have the power within ourselves to facilitate good change in the world. I want to share 3 important messages I feel will help our transformation. Number 1, always be positive. Remember, we had some hiccups just now. Somebody was scribbling the slide, which was not very nice. It's not very ethical what the person has been doing. But still, we have to be positive in what we want to convey the message to our society, to our future generation, to our researchers, to our faculty. So never fear change, because even night turns into a new day. With a positive mental attitude, we can create positive change. Remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. Number 2, seek the strength from inside yourself. Use this inner strength to create opportunities to build a better future. Though your resilience help other people. Background, ethnicity, social, political, or religious outlooks do not matter. Remember, we are all one. We are all one, and we have all gone through this pandemic together. And we are all coming out together. We are all going to come out together even stronger. Number 3, respect each other. Seek to resolve differences through understanding diverse viewpoints. We are all have a key role in society. We are all master of our own destiny. This is our world. This is our world. Seek to be the change you wish to create in the world. It is only by working together that we can create a positive global change. I would like to end by quoting Dr. Abdul Kalam. He said, "We cannot change." Can you change the slide? Is it the last slide?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We are with you. No,
you cannot change your future, but you can change your habit, and surely your habit will change your future. I hope that you have all enjoyed the session. I know there were some hiccups, there were some glimpses about it, but I'm sure, hope you have heard me and you listened to me and you have taken something out of it. I would like once again to thank Adrash Mahavidyalaya Omriga and the organizing team for inviting me here today. Thank you and namaste.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for the most thought-provoking talk on revisiting language and literature in general. And you have clearly elaborated on various aspects of a language: verbal communication, non-verbal communication. Then you have given 3 very positive messages, and you have concluded. And we have Dr. Mustajib Khan sir as the chairperson and as the valedictory speaker to say something fruitful about your talk. Now let me invite Dr. Ramesh Chougule sir, professor and head Department of English, Subcampus Usmanabad, to deliver his talk. Over to you, Dr. Ramesh Chougule sir. Yes, sir, you are audible now.
Mike.
Hello.
Yes,
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Respected keynote speaker of this international conference, Professor A.G. Khan sir, resource person, Dr. Pareen Somani madam, Dr. Musjid Khan, convener of this webinar, Dr. Tanaji Pawar, coordinators, Dr. Prashant Mote and Dr. Sudhir Machpati, my friend Kamlakar Jadhav, Dr. Kamlakar Jadhav, and dear friends, I am happy to share my experience about
COVID-19 and its aftermath. Due to the COVID-19, we have enough time to revisit and to rethink about the literature already studied, analyzed, and approached. Traditional approaches to the study of literature are insufficient and inadequate to convey the complete message of particular text if applied separately. For example, feminism is concerned with the image of woman, but it will not consider post-colonial issues, whereas eco-criticism is about the problems of environment and nature, but it will not talk about the woman and her problems. Post-colonialism talks about the issues of neocolonialism, race, uneven development, and globalization. However, post-colonialism fails to address issues of gender and environment in depth. Hence, there is a need to have a comprehensive approach so that all aspects of literature will be studied and analyzed adequately. And that is why I am going to talk on going beyond binary, post-colonial eco-feminist concerns in Indian English literature. It is the apt time for us to revisit and rethink about the various approaches to the study of literature. I am happy to use a new term called post-colonial eco-feminism, which is helpful to reread and reanalyze Indian English literature in particular and world literature in general. Post-colonial eco-feminism will help us to understand different sets of literature in different perspectives. Certain limitations will be experienced if we study literature from any one point of view. For example, eco-feminist writers or critics fail to think of post-colonial concerns, whereas post-colonial eco-criticism merges women with larger ecological issues such as land displacement, racism, erasure of women's identity, and so on. The need to study post-colonial eco-feminism arises due to insufficiencies of eco-criticism and post-colonial eco-criticism. Post-colonial eco-criticism addresses issues of land displacement, displacement, disappointment, encroachment of industrialization on nature, gender, environment, capitalism, and material condition. New perspectives on Indian women writers within the framework of post-colonial eco-feminism becomes possible. Post-colonial eco-feminism combines both post-colonial eco-criticism, which is male-dominated, and eco-feminism, which is female-dominated. Eco-criticism and eco-feminism are dominated in Europe and America, whereas post-colonialism is a dominant in former colonies like African, Latin American, and Asian countries. Exploitation of nature and oppression of women are intimately connected with the notions of class, caste, gender, and colonialism. European criticism till Derrida believes in the binary opposition of nature and culture, whereas post-colonial eco-feminism believes in the disruption of binary of culture and nature dualism. Women belong to naturally nature. Women love nature and take care of nature. However, they are also not in favor of nature or natural violence and disaster. Women are not just in ambivalent relationship with nature and their immediate surroundings. They do not oppose to urban and technological development also. They just straddle the gray area between two binaries. Traditionally, both women and nature are considered as passive, inert, and as instrument to be used for man and mankind. Rethinking of nature as a feminist space means freeing up both nature and women, from the baggage of traditional stereotypes. As a result, binaries such as culture nature are meshed with each other. Postmodern critic Donna Haraway also supports this view and uses the term nature culture. This is the one term, nature culture, to describe the intermingling of the culture nature binary into each other. Women's attitude to nature was considered as ambivalent. Rupturing of culture nature binary into ambivalence results in the possibility of women occupying multiple positions. As a result, women might relate to culture nature in both positive and negative ways simultaneously, that is ambivalently, which is most important concern of post-colonial critique, Homi Bhabha's The Location of Culture. Indian English authors will be revisited and reanalyzed using the above discussion. Indian women novelists like Anita Desai, Kamla Markandeya, Arundhati Roy, Kiran Desai, and many more offer us an opportunity to reread, reanalyze, and rethink about their novels. All these women novelists attempt to represent women, nature, and space within the framework of post-colonial eco-feminism. The issues of gender, environment, colonialism, globalization, racism are interwoven in a complex way that we cannot separate one aspect from the another aspect. I know, as Dr. A.J. Khan has mentioned, that distressful, disappointment, suffering, loss of jobs, economic problems, all these are responsible for the loss of identity and disappointment. And though the reasons are different, here Kamla Markandeya, her very first novel, Nectar in a Sieve. This novel is about Rukmini and her struggle for the identity. Here, Kamla Markandeya has interwoven the issues of gender, issues of environment, and the land displacement also. Land displacement in her novel that is called as Nectar in a Sieve. The relationship of woman with the land and the cost of development when agrarian communities are deprived of their land is the most important aspect of the novel that is called as Nectar in a Sieve. Female protagonist Rukmini is crisis for identity is resolved through the ambivalence, through her ambivalence attitude towards nature, space, and social custom. This Rukmini's struggle to establish her own identity is indicative of the post-colonial environmental condition. Post-colonial environmental condition is raised where we see rural and urban, human and nature, and social custom. Rukmini found herself in between the binary, that is nature and culture, where there is no natural link of the woman to nature. Identity crisis of that Rukmini and the identity crisis of her daughter is the most important theme of this novel that is called as Nectar in a Sieve. Now, when Rukmini is working on the land at that time, due to the modernization, due to the import or due to the establishment of industrialization on the land which is owned by Rukmini. See, this industrialization or the establishment of that industrialization has made that Rukmini to leave that land. Now, the point is whether Rukmini is leaving that land or whether that land is refusing her to live on the same land is a problem in front of us also. See, the COVID pandemic has forced most of the migrants to leave the land. Now the problem is whether the migrants are leaving the land willingly or they are forced to leave the land. See, that is the most important, though the reasons are different here. For Rukmini, industrialization is the reason, and for the workers, for the laborers, migrant laborers, that COVID-19 is the most important reason here. But the result is the same for both Rukmini and this COVID-19 laborers. That is suffering, disappointment, distressful, loss of jobs. See, and uncertainty in the life of the migrant laborers and in the life of this Rukmini. See, whether to remain on the land or whether to leave the land is the most important problem in front of that Rukmini. Her physical and geographical, see here the physical and geographical entity plays the most very important role in the life of that Rukmini. The tension when arises, tension between the idyllic village life and the encroachment of industrialization on the land and its people. See, all these social issues are mingled with the gendered issue, that is Rukmini's crisis for identity. Rukmini loves her land. She works on the land. She grows on the same land from childhood till the youth, young woman, but she was forced to leave her land. See, neither of land nor of city. See, when she was forced to leave that land, at that time, she just migrated to the city where she was trying to find out a job, to secure a job, or to have bread and butter. But that city also disowns her. And as a result, Rukmini returns back to the village. That is where she was once living with her husband. See here, Rukmini's position is the same with the position experienced by the migrant laborers, though the reason is here different one. See, Rukmini refuses to be associated with the nature. Her disruption with the nature. See, her disruption, on the one hand, she is leaving her native village, her native place, the land which she cultivates, she loves, but at the same time, she refuges land. That is, that encroachment of industrialization on the same land disrupted her life, and that is why her attitude towards nature, her attitude towards the village, her attitude towards that city is here just like a disrupted one. That is the disrupted binary of nature and culture is here reflected. See, within this, what used to say, Rukmini is, if you see, one passage is given where Rukmini is sowing the seeds of pomegranates or pumpkin in her garden. See, that sowing of seeds of a fruit in her garden is here narrated by Kamla Markandeya and compared that to sowing of seeds with the Rukmini's coming of age. That is romanticized here. Her love for that land is here romanticized, but at the same time, the same love for that land is turned into the hatred when that industrialization arrives in the village. See, that is here Rukmini's attempt to reconcile between that tradition and modernity, and her failure to reconcile between the tradition and modernity. See, another writer, that is another disciple, and another most important work, that is Fire on the Mountain. See, we come to know this Anita Desai has also handled the problems of environment, the problems of nature, the problems of gender, see, and the frustration, loneliness, aloneness, uncertainty. See, all these things are reflected in the in the novels written by Anita Desai also, though peacock never enters in the novel, but Anita Desai's Cry the Peacock, that is the protagonist, Maya. Maya's attitude to the animals, that is pet dog Toto, then a cat brought by her own husband, then monkeys. See, her attitude towards these pet animals. See, animals are also part of the nature, and her attitude towards the animals is also what is to say is also ambivalent one. And this ambivalence is the most important characteristic feature of post-colonialism. The description of environment, degradation in the hills, in the Kazali region in Uttar Pradesh, then Uttar Pradesh, is the most important aspect of higher on the mountain. See, that Nanda cow living far away from the society, alone on the mountain, and her granddaughter, great-granddaughter, that is Raka, living far away from the society. Both of them are not trying to establish relationship with each other. See, that Nanda Kaul and Raka, their lives are characterized by disappointment, despair. See, their lives are also characterized by suffering. See, though the reasons are different one, when Nanda Kaul was trying to establish her relationship with that great-granddaughter, that is Raka, at that time Raka refuses to accept that relationship because she wanted to live alone, isolated, far away from the society. See, Raka's, that is here, Nanda Kaul's attempt to restructure her own life by establishing her relationship with her great-granddaughter, that is Raka, is here disrupted one, because that Nanda Kaul never attempts to implant trees on the mountain. See, whereas that Raka is trying to implant trees on the mountain. See, when that Nanda Kaul is made to leave that mountain, to live, even Raka is also made to leave that mountain because of the encroachment of the civilization on the hills. See, that is the lives of Nanda Kaul and Raka are here disrupted due to the encroachment of civilizations. See, under the name of betterment, under the name of development, the various civilizations established, various institutions were established in the hillside of that Uttar Pradesh. See, of that Uttar Pradesh, and as a result, the lives of the common people, the lives of the isolated people are also disturbed. Just like this COVID-19 has not spared anyone, even the people living far away from the society are also disturbed by the COVID-19. The same is also happened with Nanda Kaul and Raka. See, Raka's attempt to redefine herself in the landscape of Kazali. She does not want to add more tree on the mountain. She is trying to restructure her life in the presence of life, but she is not willing to implant, she is not willing to add more trees on the mountain. That is her attitude towards that nature is here ambivalent one. See, that is the most important characteristic feature of post-colonialism. And that is why we cannot separate the post-colonialism, eco-feminism, or eco-criticism, because all aspects of these approaches are interwoven together in such a way that we cannot separate, or we cannot study that novel using one approach or the another. See, Nanda Kaul and Raka refused to plant trees on the mountain, and these efforts or their attempts not to add trees on the mountains shows their disinterestedness in life. See, Raka's love for nature is natural, no doubt. She wants to enjoy nature rather than connect with the grandmother, that is Nanda Kaul. But at the same time, Raka's solitude and tranquility. See, that solitude and tranquility act as an inspiring force for that Raka. And that is why she says the same civilized world of city is like a prison for Raka. See, for Raka, this city life is like a prison, and that is why she loves to live alone, away, far away from the society. See, natural world appeals to Raka. She wants to be free and swift as the west wind, and that is why the gradual distortion of the natural world in Kajoli. Kajoli is the name of the hill. See, due to the establishment of various what is to say industrialization, medical institutions, and so on and so forth, dust, squalor, nude rocks, pebbles, tall pine trees, see, remains on that hillside, and all these things give impression of deterioration of the natural world, and that is why industrialization devours natural resources and natural spaces and inspires people to migrate and destroy the idyllic remoteness of such places and pollutes the earth and the sky. See, for example, if you see that Raka once says, what she says, white sky becomes black, weep of smoke, fills the air with smoke. See here, that is everywhere. The whole hillside becomes polluted due to the establishment of industrialization, due to the establishment of medical colleges and medical institutions. With medical colleges, different things come, that animal limbs, dogs' brains, pigs, chloroforms, spirits, see, various things, even certain rats and rabbits are also kept for scientific states. See, and all these things have made that hillside polluted, and that is why that hillside becomes very distressful for both Raka and see that Nandakol. See, all these industrial and medical institutions and the things associated with that medical and industrial institutions spoil the natural view and increases the heat of the summer. As a result, Nandakol and Raka faces the problem of water scarcity even during the summer days. See, and that is here these hills, though they are considered as summer holiday, are considered as very attractive places for summer holidays, are now blotted out by the smoke. See, hills ran out of water in summer days also. See, that is how that Kamla Markandeya and Anita Desai, both of them attempted to interview or attempted to view together the various aspects of post-colonialism, various aspects of eco-criticism and eco-feminism also. See, that is imperialistic mode and colonialistic attitude towards gender, nature, and environment are challenged by the post-colonial eco-feminism. Kamla Markandeya's Nectar in a Shoe, Anita Desai's Higher on the Mountain, and even Arundhati Roy's The God of Small Things. I know these novels are analyzed, studied in a various ways, and number of articles, number of researches were also done on these writers. But the press attitude towards, or if you rethink these novelists and these novels from colonial, post-colonial, eco-feminist point of view, see, new meanings become possible. See, and that is why issues and themes. See, these writers attempted. What is to say? These writers just highlight the issues and themes which are considered as urgent and relevant in the post-colonial and environmental context. I just end my talk with a quote. I quote, "At the same time, these novels drew attention to issues of gender and caste and posit the writings as a site of resistance to prevalent attitudes and social practices that not only denigrate specific human individuals, both men and women, but also non-human entities." I think due to the lack of time, I cannot present the Arundhati Roy and her novel, that is The God of Small Things. But these novelists and their novels will help us if we study these novelists using post-colonial eco-feministic point approach. They will help us to understand the other male writers also, male Indian English writers and authors also. With this, I conclude my speech. I express my sincere thanks for giving me a chance to share my experience during the COVID-19. Thank you very much, Prashant. Thank you very
Yes.
much for giving me a chance. I conclude my speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for the informative talk on COVID-19 and its aftermath. Sir, you have clearly pointed out that we need to rethink, reread, and reanalyze the text. Through your informative talk, you have clearly pointed out and focused on the various themes like post-colonialism, eco-criticism, and eco-feminism, issues of gender, issues of land displacement, issues of environment by citing various examples by the famous novelists like Kamala Markandeya, Anita Desai, and Arundhati Roy. So now I feel proud, privileged to invite Dr. Mustajib Khan, sir, who is a professor of Department of English in Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, Aurangabad. He is a theater activist, dramatist, light designer, and translator to deliver his concluding remark as the chairperson and valedictory speaker. Over to you, Dr. Mustajib Khan, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
A valedictory remark and sharing the session. The session was having such a great scholars like Professor A.G. Khan, Dr. Parin Somani, Ramesh Saugule, and their talks on different issues. Let me put something in front of you when we are talking about all these three speakers who talked on various aspects that what will happen or what will be the condition in post-COVID situation. What Professor Khan has started his talk and gave perfect deliberation and start to the webinar, that we need to understand what sort of thinking that the creative writers will have in their mind when they start to publish or when they start to write down their own writing work. In fact, it is very much essential for us to understand one important fact, and the important fact is the whole literature in 20th century changed after facing the two severe world wars. After First World War, we witnessed a change in poetry writing, and you find T.S. Eliot appearing with his ideas and bringing out some different sorts of poetry which influenced the poetry written across the world. That was after the First World War. That was the change that we observed in literature after the First World War, where every aspect of philosophy, every aspect of creativity, aspect of expressions had changed. We find that most of the creative writers of that particular period after First World War, they focused on the sort of issues and problems that the society faced after watching the severe destruction after First World War. And the most important change, most vital change we find it out in the literary world and in the world of expression was after Second World War. And after Second World War, a big question mark was raised on the use of language, whether the language is compatible to fulfill the needs of human expression. Do we need something else? And we find Samuel Beckett appearing with his ideas in Waiting for Godot with silence as one of the most important part of human life. This silence has its own voice. This silence has its own understanding. And this Second World War had made so many critics to come with different ideas, right from Saussure to Derrida to Halliday, you will find out all these writers in the 20th century, all these critics working on language, all these semioticians, all these linguists working on language after Second World War focused on the use of language, which is very much pertinent and which is very much specific to certain objectives, of which binaries and two binaries appearing, as Professor Chaubule has already talked about, what sort of binaries and how these binaries will affect the whole understanding. Those binaries, or what Paril Somani ma'am had pointed out, that how we can able to find out the change in language and how what it means by language and what are the modes of communication, you will find out in understanding the relationship between the humans and how this society will develop with this sort of understanding. We find all those elements which human being faced after two major destructions changed the whole understanding of language, literature, and all of the culture that we are finding in our society today. Now, we can assume only, not we are assured, that this post-COVID situation may change the whole understanding, because it is not yet clear that how these creative writers, how we are thinking about the whole idea of living in isolation. We are not at all able to understand what exactly this pandemic means by. We are not able to focus on what sort of situations will arrive tomorrow. We are not able to focus on what sort of life it will come when we are living in post-COVID situation, maybe after 2 months, maybe after 6 months, maybe after 1 year, but the expressions will come after 1 year. So we are now assuming that how this COVID will affect the understanding of language and literature. What Pareen Somani ma'am had beautifully pointed out, one very important issue, and pointed out that the language will change. And really, what Professor Khan also mentioned in his inauguratory remarks, that the language itself will change. As I said you, that Beckett has pointed out, or the whole absurd dramatist had pointed out, that there is absolutely a sort of not suitability of language for the society. So the absurdity that appears after Second World War, we need to understand this sort of post-absurd condition may appear after this COVID situation, because everyone is living in isolation, everyone is having its own story, and you will find out there is a rise of lots of stories, as Professor Khan has pointed out, that there will be lots of stories coming in front of us, right from the stories of a COVID patient staying in an hospital, staying for 14 days with the hospital, and you will find out that what sort of expressions that the doctors are carrying about those patients, staying in a PPE kit for so many years. Probably tomorrow, the doctors will be able to give good kind of literature to us with their own experiences of facing patients, and the patients may have their own language to express everything. Let me remind you one thing, this situation has brought a very bigger issue of socio-economic and political conditions of our society across the world. Whether it is America, where Black Lives Matters, whether it is India, where the moving of laborers, workers, migration, we may not call this as a migration. Again, being teachers of English, being teachers of literature, being students of literature, being scholars of this society, we need to have a word coined for this particular transformation of person from his one place to another place. Migration can be equaled with transformation or transferring one person to another person for getting better life, for earning some sort of money. These laborers have shifted their place, leaving their money, leaving their places and going to another place, going to their homeland back. Now, from homeland, people are going outside and they are called as diaspora. But now what it should be called as, they are really getting back. They are getting back to their homeland and feeling that homeland is much safer than the place where they are working, from the place where they thought that that place would be their future land where they can grow, but they are leaving that place and coming back to their homeland. What should be the term suitable for this? We need to focus on that particular term, and we need to find out that particular term, that what would be the term. The first term is diaspora, the first term is migration, first term is migrators, but now they are not migrators, they are going back to their own homeland, trying to die. And let me remind you one thing, my friends, when these workers were traveling back to their land, they died. They have not reached safely to their land. They died there, and look at the conditions when they reached back. They are living in such a disastrous condition at their homelands. We need to coin certain words, and this COVID aftermath requires this coining and recoining of certain critical terminologies, recoining of certain critical words, recoining of certain critical ideas, so that we can able to find it out. In this whole COVID situation, let me put one point in front of you and make it very clear that this post-COVID situation carried a different type of language. We have to focus on this different kind of language. What is that language this post-COVID, this COVID situation has given to us? Look at the placards that you will find out at various places across the world, whether it is a placard used in Black Lives Matter, whether it is the placards used in Indian political scenario. Look at the movements and look out the people coming out on the streets to support without any political support, without any political agencies, without any state supporting the people to help those migrators or those laborers going back to their homeland. Now we need to define these sorts of language. What exactly this language is, what sort of semiotic this is. When Pareen Somani ma'am is talking about the cognitive approach of understanding the language, we need to understand this use of language, that this body language is absolutely different, where people are ready to travel only in one can or one tanker, sitting alone, 30 and 50 people paying whatever money they want. Police is stopping at everywhere. Police is lathi charging them. Police is beating them. The sort of violence you will find out, the sort of violence increased during this COVID situation. We need to have expressions of these violences to be appeared in literature in coming days. When we are revisiting to literature, we need to understand this sort of violence, what violence that Second World War had shown to the writers, creative persons, critics of the world, the same sort of language. Now we need to focus on, we need to understand that language. I think all the three great scholars presented their views and ideas and instigated some motivational words and gave some sort of thought-provoking ideas to the participants who are large in number and who are raising their hands asking for the feedback forms. And these participants may able to coin some sort of new ideas, new understandings, so that we can able to understand that what sort of language. Remember one thing, my friends, when I'm going through this participant list, I found most of them are teachers attending this particular webinar. That is the biggest responsibility on all of us as the teachers of any college, any institute, any university, because now we have to coin a sort of language that will make our students to be confident. What Pareen Somani ma'am had clearly said, that we need to boost up a morale of the person who is facing or who is living in this COVID situation. Our students are living in very pathetic conditions. They are confused still. In Maharashtra, our students are confused still whether to give examination or not, what will happen with our examinations or not, how the teachers are confused, how shall I admit my students in my classroom or not, whether this student will come and sit in my classroom or not, whether can I able to maintain the social distancing, which is a very unsupportive word for this type of making. This is not social distancing, it should be physical distancing, and we are using the word social distancing very blindly without understanding the nuances and socio-political understandings of that word called social distancing. What would be the physical distancing? How would we measure to have a physical distancing in our classrooms? How are we going to make our students to understand? If you are going to teach your students something with John Donne, you are going to teach your students something with Alexander Pope, you are going to teach your students something with which is not at all relevant for Elizabethan literature, Victorian literature, Romantic literature. He will say, sir, please tell me what sort of language shall I use today in this post-COVID situation? I'm not able to express myself. Do you have any expression? Do you have any poet? Do you have any creative writer who will express my feelings that how I should face this critical situation? And the answers, we need to have those answers for these types of questions that may come in our classroom, that may appear in our classroom. When you're teaching literature to the student will ask hundreds of questions, and student will ask us Sir, can you clarify me that why daffodils are simply dancing alone? I am dancing alone in my isolated ward. I am not able to communicate with each other. What sort of language shall I use to express my feelings? And what sort of writer you suggest me to read? And it is the responsibility of all of us to give some new ideas. What Parin Somani ma'am had concluded with that word by giving a very beautiful quote by APJ Abdul Kalam and saying that we need to focus on the future, that for future we need to understand as a teachers, as a students of language, as a students of literature. If you are not able to understand the language, if you are not able to understand the future of literature, the future of language, the future of expression, how to face this situation after 3 months, after 5 months, after 1 year, we are simply having a talk and talk and talk only on webinars, speaking in front of cameras and talking in front of Zooms and sitting and looking at the various textures of our walls on the screen and thinking that we did a lot of good work. It needs a new type of language to be focused on. We need to understand the whole critical terminology. We need to revisit the whole psychoanalytical theories once again to understand our students. Otherwise, what Lacan says, what Freud said, what Jung says, we need to understand it once again and apply it to the contemporary scenario that we are facing today. Thank you very much, Prashant Mote, that you have got a time at 5 o'clock for that Zoom. It is 5:10. I've exceeded 10 minutes more. So I apologize for exceeding 10 minutes more. Thank you very much for the patience listening. Thank you.
In fact, thank you very much, sir, for your chairing the session and giving eye-opening, powerful, and enthusiastic valedictory address. In fact, many thanks to you for accepting our invitation at 11th hour due to some domestic problem with Honorable Uttam Ambure sir. He needs to travel to Nashik, and we have given you a call at 11th hour, and you have accepted our invitation and chair this informative session. Now, at last, may I invite my friend and departmental colleague, Dr. Sudhir Matpati sir, to deliver vote of thanks. Before that, feedback link has, I think, posted in the Zoom chat box. So I request all the participants to fill this feedback form for the certification. Yes, over to you, Dr. Sudhir Matpati sir.
Thank you, Prashant. Am I audible to all?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, good evening, one and all. Now we have reached to the final moments of this today's academic event. I'm Dr. Sudhir, and it's a great pride and privilege for our institutions, Samajeevi Shikshan Prasarak Mandals, Adarsh Mahavidyalaya, Umargam, District Osmanabad, Maharashtra, and our Department of English as well to host this today's International Web Conference on the most burning and thrilling topic, or thing rather I say, that is revisiting language and literature after COVID-19. As it is known to all that Albert Einstein has rightly stated, imagination is more powerful than knowledge. And this is the pandemic COVID-19 that made us all to imagine the future, made us all to hypothesize the future in all respect. So I'm feeling honored to have this opportunity to extend vote of thanks on behalf of the organizing committee. At first, I extend the deepest sense of gratitude towards the most dynamic academician, very well-known speaker, prolific administrator, and today's keynote speaker, Honorable Professor A.G. Khan sir, for accepting our invitation and delivering an energetic and vibrant keynote address with highlighting some important avenues of language and literature after pandemic COVID-19. I am very much thankful to our another resource person, Honorable Parin Somani ma'am, for being the part of this international academic event, and by joining all the way from London and delivering a mesmerizing address with fruitful and productive content, like language, virtual platform, communication, and changing perspectives of teaching as well. So I'm very much thankful to Honorable Parin Somani ma'am as well. I'm highly in debt to respected Professor Ramesh Chaudhary sir, the head Department of English, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, Marathwada University, Subcampus, Usmanabad, for exploring crucial threats and making available or just talking about the new entry points regarding language and literature after this pandemic COVID-19 situation. I extend our warm feeling of gratitude towards the man of theatre, our friend, philosopher, and guide, respected Professor Mustajib Khan sir, Professor, Department of English, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, Marathwada University, Aurangabad, Maharashtra, for chairing the valedictory session with excellent address covering all the threads like development in language and literature after First and Second World War, the post-COVID situation, what would be the situation after pandemic COVID-19, socio-economic and political issues, how they are going to be. It was, overall speaking, it was a kind of thought-provoking talk, and we are very much thankful to respected Professor Mustajib Khan sir as well. Now we are thankful to Honorable President of our institution, Mr. Vinayak Raoji Patil sir, Honorable General Secretary and former Minister of Maharashtra State, respected Sri Baswaraji Patil sir, Honorable Secretary, Mr. Ramkrishna Pantji Thorosekar sir, and all member of the management for supporting us in organizing this international event. As a department, we are thankful to our inspiration and all-time supporter, our Honorable Principal, Dr. Dilip Garud sir, for hosting us, supporting us, and doing all the needful things to organize this academic event and delivering a very beautiful welcome speech. We, being the department, we are thankful to our Vice Principal, Professor H.G. Kulkarni, IPSC Coordinator, Professor Madi SB, all staff members, and non-teaching staff as well for their moral support. It's a great pride and honor to have more than 600 online participants for this international academic event from almost all the states of the country and abroad as well. So on behalf of the organizing committee, I'm thankful to all the participants for your active participation. Without your active participation, this event was highly impossible. I'm thankful to the convener and the head department of English, our respected Dr. T.M. Pawar sir, and the person who has been anchoring this event right from the beginning, my colleague, my friend, Dr. Prashant Mote, for taking all kinds of efforts to make this event successful. We are thankful to our friend, Dr. K.D. Jadhav sir and his team for supporting us with a great and sound technical hand, without which this event was highly impossible. I extend the gratitude towards all of them who have supported, cooperated us directly or indirectly, and taken efforts to make this event successful. With these brief words of gratitude, with kind permission of the organizing committee and Honorable Organizing Secretary as well, I declare that the valedictory ceremony of this one-day international web conference on revisiting language and literature after COVID-19 is over. Thank you. Thank you,
Yes,
one and all.
thank you. Thank you very much. Feedback link has posted in the Zoom chat box. I request all the participants to fill this feedback form for the certification. Now, respected Kamlakar K.D. Jadhav sir, we can end the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chabul sir, Mustajib Khan sir, Parin ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So may I end the meeting?